Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monster Report Live. Nick Adam Poling, your host here, and we have got a great live episode for you today. So, thank you so much for joining us. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all those great things. They're out of the way. And obviously, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and we've got a special guest I'm going to bring in here in just a minute. But just want to let everyone know Monster Report's a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. And with that, we talk a lot of kaiju, we talk a lot of toys, comics, music, movies, just a little bit of everything from geek culture, especially if it includes monsters. And so that's why I wanted to bring in today. I'm going to add him here to the stream, Mr. Christopher Hillseth. How are you doing, Chris?
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm doing great. I'm
Yeah.
all caffeined up and ready to go.
Oh, good. Yeah, I saw you said about getting a coffee before we went on. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a double espresso or anything, was it?
Uh, well, I make my coffee pretty strong. I've actually been drinking coffee since I was 8, so yeah. Haven't
Nice.
missed a day yet.
Okay, he's an aficionado at the
Yeah.
coffee. Yeah. So Last Bastion Studios, and I was
Mhm.
actually put in touch with you with our mutual friend Chris Olio, and
Mhm.
he talked to me about Ragnar specifically. But then I started
Mhm.
checking out your site and seeing all the
Mhm.
cool things that Last Bastion does beyond Ragnar too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
We
wanted to.
we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. So Ragnar is my creation, my property that I have been developing over the last couple years, and then my business partner Wes, he's got a couple stories that he's been developing, and one of his flagship projects is the Luchador series. And so a couple of years ago, we combined forces and brought uh, all of our uh, pros together to this like union and created this company, Last Bastion Studios. So he's got a lot of writing proficiencies, and I've got a lot of background in toys and sculpting and painting, and we thought it was a great fit to just create some really awesome, cool stuff.
Okay, very cool. And you're out
Yeah,
of L.A. area, correct?
yeah, Los Angeles.
Yeah, nice. And one of the things, make sure we get these kinds of things, beginning and end of this stream
Hmm.
out of the way, just to make sure everyone knows where to find you.
Hmm.
Just maybe the website to start with.
Lastbastionstudio.com. We've got Ragnar Squad on Instagram and Twitter.
Mhm.
We've got Last Bastion Studio or Last Bastion STU on Twitter and Last Bastion Studios on Instagram. And there's a lot of Luchador comic in there, and you'll find all the other links through the Last Bastion Studios profiles.
Yeah, and that's the best place to
Hmm.
keep
Yeah.
up to date with everything. Yeah,
Yeah, we've got a lot of different projects, so it's kind of hard to keep track of all of it.
right. Yeah, you even got a blog on the website to kind of
Hmm.
keep everyone up to date on
Hmm.
projects you're working on.
Yeah.
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 Cool. And so, with that, you're a kaiju fan, probably from
Mhm.
the early days.
Mhm.
Talk to us about your kaiju upbringing. Where did it all?
So, you uh it, I really had to like search through all my memories of like childhood of like what's the earliest memory of like kaijus or big monsters. And I know that I've got this really early memory of like when I was like 4 or 5 years old of like painting a Jurassic Park dinosaur kit, and it was like a velociraptor, and ever since then it was like, oh, I love these giant big monsters. But the thing that like really set me off was, I think, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was either IFC or Turner Classic Movies was running like a whole weekend of all the Godzilla movies, of like start to finish, of whatever had existed in a time period. And I was glued to the TV the whole weekend of just like drinking chocolate milk and like eating chips and like just vegging out like, oh my god, Mothra, Rodan, ah, Gamera. Like, and ever since then, like actually before that weekend, like I had only like Transformers, and I was a big robot guy, and like I loved GoBots. I loved Transformers and all the Mech Warriors and everything else that was like existing before, like at that time period. And then after that weekend, it was just like all right, I need Shogun Warriors, I need Godzilla, I need Gamera, and I pretended that I was Godzilla every time I went into the supermarket, smashing things and knocking things off the counter and drive my mom crazy.
That's right.
But that's kind of where it all started, and then um over the years it's kind of waxed and waned with like getting into anime and manga, and then like getting into other art, more fantasy and sci-fi, but at the core of it, it's always been there.
And so you mentioned Jurassic Park. Were you
Hmm.
kind of young when the first one came out, or one of the others,
Hmm.
were coming out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I there was a whole bunch of weird toys back then,
Yeah,
like weird promotional things from like I forget if it was Taco Bell or Burger King, where there was like the Spitter Raptor cup top that would
right.
squirt out the soda, and but yeah, definitely remember the shaving cream can. I would sneak into
Yeah,
my dad's bathroom cabinet and take out the Barbasol and spray it everywhere, looking for those little vials in there.
right.
Um, I was a pretty mischievous kid.
Gotcha. Well, and yeah, that Jurassic Park, that at least
Mhm,
for me, I remember that first movie was
mhm.
just like, this isn't your typical dinosaur movie, and then it was just set kind of everything,
Oh yeah,
the world of what the creatures, giant creatures, could be.
yeah, yeah. It was like you felt the immense weight of what that creature on screen like brought to the movie. Like you were scared, like oh my god, like looking like Jeff Goldblum, just like oh, just like running away. But yeah, I love that movie so much when I was a little kid.
And so, as a kid, did you have some Gamera exposure too?
Yeah, actually, Gamera is my absolute favorite kaiju of all time,
Mhm.
and hence, Ragnar being a turtle.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Let's see Ragnar.
yeah,
Yeah, that is cool.
yeah, that's my
We'll
my little kaiju buddy.
Yeah, we'll definitely have
Ragnar.
some toys here in a few, but I
Hmm.
wanted to show everyone
Yeah.
Ragnar
Hmm.
because there are so many variations out there for people to check out and
Yeah.
on the store. But yeah, so like the turtle kind of
Hmm.
background,
Hmm.
TMNT, any kind of background with
You
that?
you know, I like TMNT when I was really young. I had the I forget, it was the hover vehicle where they all sat in, the wheels
Yeah.
flop down and you can glide around.
Hmm.
Um, my sisters were really into TMNT. So I have three older sisters that were really into the Ninja Turtles, and I think one Halloween we all dressed up as Ninja Turtles. Um, as far as like other turtles, besides Gamera and TMNT, I wasn't really that big of a turtle guy when I was younger. It was only until like I got into my like 20s where I was like, "Oh, turtles are cool. Turtles are really, really cool."
And it's funny, the
Hmm.
in Japan, there's a lot of reverence given to
Hmm.
the
Oh yeah,
turtle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The yokai, the spirit, the little spirits, the kappa. There's a whole bunch of mythology and like stories and legends of turtle characters within their culture, and it's always really interesting to like kind of uncover these old stories and where they came from, and how they've influenced all these other stories and media and like movies and comics along the way.
Mhm. Yeah, and so, what kid wouldn't like, getting into, turtles and Gamera? I mean, Gamera,
Hmm.
despite being a turtle, is just an awesome character. And
Hmm. Yeah.
as a kid growing up with that, especially with that Showa series that we had, and then
Hmm.
the '90s trilogy, which was
Hmm.
just blew everyone away. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the one that made the most impression on me. And then
Mhm.
the whole thing that Gamera fights for the kids. He fights for the kids.
And I love showing my kids the Gamera movies, but then there's a couple
Mhm.
of times I have to be like, "Oh, he just like lopped off the head of Gauss and here
Yeah. Like suddenly there's an arm missing, or just like, oh yeah, I forgot that's in there.
Yeah, yeah, that's if you ever see my video on Gamma versus Giron, especially, I
Hmm.
have my kids like in that review, and I'm like covering their
Hmm.
eyes, and so because they'll watch it with me. They know
Yeah.
it's so fake, but it's just like
Hmm.
it's good fun. And
Hmm.
but like we'll get into more Ragnar and Turtles. But so the background of Last Bastion, you kind of touched on that.
Mhm.
Talk about like the name, how things all started, the logo, even, and kind of
Yeah.
what the origin story is.
So me and my business partner Wes actually met I think it's almost 10 years ago. Uh where Wes was one of the head instructors at this local judo dojo. And so when I was working as a field operative for a detective service, uh, I had too many guns and knives pulled on me one month, and uh, I didn't know any Muay Thai or striking or barely anything to do any kind of self defense. So I looked up this local judo dojo, Pasadena Kodokan, and I started taking classes. And then, me and Wes started talking, and he was one of the very few people that I know that can hold a complete conversation with only movie quotes and show quotes. So we're just doing Arnold Schwarzenegger movies with Stallone and like Sonny Chiba and all this stuff. And uh, then we were like, "No, okay, yeah, you're cool, you're cool. All right." So I was just starting to work at Gentle Giant Studios at the time, and I was talking to him about wanting to make a Sonny Chiba action figure.
Mm,
And me and him were talking about, oh, we should start a company. We would we would try and find Sonny Chiba to get him sign off on like the likeness, and we'll try and figure out how to make an action figure of him and sell it. And this is early days where I had like no idea how to do any of this stuff. It was just like
mhm,
this fever dream of this idea of like, oh, it could happen.
mhm, mhm,
um and the conversation, it was great. We were friends for many years, but like we never really pursued it until I think it was 2016 or 17, where I started coming up with the concept of Ragnar. And I went to DesignerCon in Pasadena. Um, I had been going to the DesignerCon ever since 2009, when it was like in the really small room, and over the years it's grown to, now it's at the Anaheim Convention Center. It's a huge show now for designer toys. So I started with like a corner of a booth, sharing it with like four other people, and I was selling a resin version of Ragnar. And Wes had come to the show and he's like, "Oh, wait, we can do this. We can make toys. Let's team up. I'll tell the story. I'll help you tell the story of Ragnar, and we'll just develop toys and make comics and like make the company that we want to make." And like the dream of like making comics and toys like has been there with me ever since I was a kid, like in all of us, like.
mhm.
And me
Yeah.
and him were just like, all right, let's do it. What are we gonna call it? I don't know. Is spitballing and like off the hip. It came out of conversation like Last Bastion, and so it's like the last holdout of creative good ideas, like the bastion of like creativity. So it's the last holdout that we kind of came up with, and so that we're all uh like He-Man's castle, just like we're there toiling away and making really cool stuff within the bastion.
Okay. So you
So
had
that's
a castle,
yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the bastion is like, a fortified tower turret thing, and we're just like, okay, yeah, that's a cool symbol to kind of like be able to place in front of somebody, and it's simple enough to like, okay, it's just like a little rook. And
Uh-huh.
ever since then we just like ran with it.
Yeah, and then that kind of slash through that you
Hmm.
had there too,
Hmm.
kind of make
Yeah.
not just that rook, but something that
Hmm.
was signature to you.
Just a little different, little character, not overcomplicated.
Mhm,
And like, with doing graphic design yourself, like you don't want to make your symbol too busy for it to get lost and like not be recognizable.
mhm.
And that's kind of like what we came up with.
Yeah, exactly. And so you got the background of Last Bastion and where it comes from.
Hmm.
Ragnar must have its origin story a little earlier.
Yeah, so I think it was 2016. I was sitting in LA traffic and going up the 5 up to Burbank, and the weekend before I did a Gamera uh binge, like just try to watch every single Gamera movie that I could. And I was sitting in traffic and it bumper to bumper. I'm thinking like I'm imagining Gamera coming down and like swiping cars out of the way so I can get to where I'm going quicker. And then it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, I want to create my own kaiju. I want to create like like I haven't seen a kaiju with like mechanical parts to them, or like there is Mecha Godzilla, and like there's these other indie artists that have made kind of like mecha style monsters, but I've never seen one that had like a cannon arm. And so I
Hmm.
was like playing with these like different ideas of like, okay, forming this character in my head. And then Ragnar started to evolve. And like, okay, it's not going to be Gamera. He's going to be set like intelligent, and he's going to be able to talk, and his cannon's going to do different things. And maybe, oh, what if he eats some really spicy food? Then he's got a flamethrower cannon. Or like, what if he eats ice cream, or eat something really cold, then it's like a freezer cannon and shooting ice beams. And so my mind just like took off and just started creating Ragnar and origin stories and like different
Hmm.
characters and all these other things that go along with him. And it's been like uh 6+ years of just building up this whole world, drawing maps, doing history, creating technology corporations that create like the vehicles and like the mech warriors and the power guardians, and who developed this and this, and like why is the world like this, and creating all these historical events. And then I just went wild with it. So
Cool.
sorry, that's like a total tangent, and I could just keep on going.
No, no, absolutely. Go right ahead because
Yeah.
what the evolution of a character.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of curious. I obviously the Gamera side of
Mhm.
things, but
Mhm.
was there some in the canon arm being some inspiration from either like a Mega Man or
Oh,
Samus?
yeah, 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 totally. Played a lot of Mega Man when I was a little kid. Played a lot of Metroid when I was a kid as well. Um, there's a bunch of manga, Cobra. There's a whole bunch of different cannon armed people, Transformers. I think there's some in plenty of Gundam Wing stuff has that. And I was just like, okay, I like a blaster. Everybody likes a blaster.
Yeah, yeah,
So there was definitely a lot of influence from the 90s and 80s video games, and put into Ragnar.
yeah.
And I try and like I'll pull up the comic book real quick. If the colors don't say 90s and 80s video games, I
Uh,
don't know what will.
absolutely, dude.
Bright yellows, pinks, purples, all that craziness.
Yeah. And I was going to ask the name Ragnar.
Hmm.
Every company has some trade secrets, and maybe you want to keep
Hmm.
some of things to yourself.
Hmm.
But was there any kind of combination word, or was there a Ragnarok? I don't know, kind of
You
back.
know, um, at the time when I was coming up with Ragnar, um, I was just playing with G's and D's and A's and like rah rah, like going like that in the car, just rah rah, like making kaiju noises. Like, what would he say? Like Godzilla doesn't say Godzilla; he goes rah rah. It's like,
Yeah.
but Ragnar was supposed to be talking, and not to make it too Pokemon, even though like I grew up with Pokemon and I'm a huge fan of it. I did want like some of his first words to be Ragnar, and like
Okay.
being able to like proclaim himself and like this is me. Um like there could be a whole bunch of other influences. Like in Star Wars, one of my favorite bounty hunters is Dengar,
Mm.
so that could have been floating in there. Up until that time, I had never watched Vikings. So
Oh,
people were saying like, "Oh, you're a big Vikings fan, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've never watched the show." "Oh, Ragnar Lothrak, yeah, like he's the main character." I'm like,
huh.
I'm shoulders. Sorry, I don't know."
You must have
But
thought with the beard, the Norse background
mhm,
thing, right? Yeah, they were.
yeah, yeah.
But they were also, if you were driving down the interstate and you saw
Mhm.
Chris while you were driving by, and he's looked like he's losing his mind. No, he's coming up with names for kaiju.
Oh, if anybody peers into my car at any point in time on the freeway, it's just like this person is insane. Just like I am talking to myself. I am like, if like I'm a big pop fan from the 90s, so I'll be playing I don't know, Britney Spears or Aqua Barbie Girl, and I'll be doing the chorus line with my hand, just like just
Oh
like
gosh.
just a total insane person.
Oh
But
man.
it's just like, I get bored, so I'm just like, I got to make things fun for myself.
There's and this is funny. My kid actually, we kind of talked Ragnar, and he
Mhm,
has this little stuffed animal, a dinosaur, kind of Godzilla looking
mhm,
thing. He calls it
yeah.
Rarg, Rarg, and
Warg, yeah.
yes, but that origin kind of goes to SpongeBob.
Mhm.
There's kind of a giant monster thing, mutation, whatever, that appears, and they ask it its name, and he goes, "Bruh," and he's like, "Okay, Mister Rarg." And so I was just like, "Oh man, that's good." But
Yeah, very very similar, very similar. And
mhm,
I definitely try and keep that childlike energy with this character and this proper like this whole world is
mhm,
like uh one of the best feelings that I get and like the most excitement that I get is like whenever I'm doing a show and I've got Ragnar, all my toys and comics set up, and I just see how like the corner of my eye, like a adolescent kid just like eyes wide open like, "Oh my god!" Just start running beelining it to the booth and just like banging on the table like, "Oh my god, turtles, turtles, what is this?" I'm like, "It's Ragnar." They're like, "Ragnar."
there's some familiarity with it
Hmm.
already, even if they've
Yeah.
never heard of it,
Hmm.
because they know
Hmm.
turtles, they love turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that energy.
And so obviously he's got you mentioned he's not like a full mech, but he's also not just a regular organic creature. He's
Yeah.
cyborg, would you call him?
So, just to like give you a brief introduction to the story. So, Ragnar, when it starts, he's like a teenager basically. In the story, he's going out to try and destroy his first city, and he's doing this because he sees other kaiju destroying all these other cities across the world, and he thinks that's what he's supposed to do since he's a big hulking monster, and he sees all of his other monster friends destroying cities. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go over here and try and destroy the city. So as he goes over, he doesn't realize that each city is protected by what I'm calling power guardians. And power guardians can be anything from like an Ultraman character, or it could be more of like a Voltron team.
Mhm.
It could be, ethereal sentient being that's got the contract to protect the city. It could be just a super strong dude or whatever. So for this city, it's protected by the Ultra Bros, and so it's three guys who are kind of a cross between Ultraman and the Beastie Boys from the Intergalactic music video. So
Okay, I do know that one. That I grew up with too.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they're jockey jerks, and Ragnar comes in and he starts punching cars and knocking stuff over and not really doing much damage but just being a nuisance. And he's not like a full on like giant kaiju. He's maybe like 10 or 15 feet tall, kind of like an elephant. And they see him and they beat the crap out of him and chop off his arm and then throw
Huh.
it away and like send him on his way and kick him out of the city. So on his way back, he is, sad and dejected, and what he kind of stumbles upon on his way home is the cannon, this giant cannon.
Uh-huh.
And what he doesn't know is that it's actually this ancient human weapon used to protect cities against kaiju. And the last person to have it was Mecha Man. So
Okay.
when you read the first issue, you'll actually understand where the cannon comes from and its origin story.
Cool.
So the cannon latches onto Ragnar's arm, and then now this whole story begins because Ragnar has this ancient kaiju killing weapon that all of his friends are afraid of now, and all the humans want it back because no kaiju should have this. It's like
Mhm.
the Excalibur, it's like the defending sword, it's like, everything to keep the kaiju at bay. So he's kind of a guy without a country. He doesn't have a side anymore. He's
Yeah.
just like growing up and figuring out what this thing is, what it means, and what it does, and growing up as, a person, because the whole story is from his perspective. It's not, oh my god, Godzilla, he's so crazy. No,
Yeah.
it's like Ragnar, like, well, what's he feeling, what's he thinking, who are these crazy characters that are coming into his life, and like, why is he doing the things that he does? And he's
Mhm.
learning along the way that there are cosmic beings that are shaping the world and trying to take over. There's Skelly King, which is the main antagonist, trying to invade the world after he was banished thousands of years ago. There's the heavy metal wizard, who is like chaos incarnate, but he is like the guy who's shepherding Ragnar through growing up, but also not being there and just causing more problems.
Mhm.
His best friend is Beatbox, who was a robot who got his power from the malice energy of the world. And so when he was being created by Dr. Hammer, uh, his malice transmitter was absorbing too much anger, so his power was growing thousands and thousands of percents higher than anticipated. So they had to break off his like transmitter, so he only operates at 25% malice. So he's just a jerk all the time. And so he strives for chaos, and like Ragnar is chaos, so he's like constantly telling Ragnar to do things and push him to become more of a greater kaiju and destroy things more efficiently.
Mhm. I'm getting kind of the tongue-in-cheek kinda
Hmm.
comedic,
Hmm.
yeah, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
horror comedy almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's like, I'm a fan of everything, and Western sci-fi, mech, like all of it, like, and it. I've built the world in such a way, and its mechanics and how it works is where like everything can coexist cohesively. And so there's like a lot of like the main guys who kind of are supposed to be keeping the world in check are these wizards. So think of like intergalactic ethereal beings like Gandalf, but they're all in a jam band. So there's the heavy metal wizard, there's the jazz wizard, there's the synth wizard, there's the funk wizard, and like the guy who hates them the most is the harp wizard, who can never get into the band. And so they have hundreds and thousands of years of like inner turmoil where they're supposed to be keeping the world in harmony,
Mhm.
but have like since been split up and broken after their fight with Skelly King. So
Oh,
as Skelly King is like banished away and is trying to influence the world, the the harp wizard is gaining like the darker forces to like summon him back. And like Ragnar is trying to help the other wizards regain their powers.
wow. So, when you were building this
Hmm.
world and thinking
Hmm.
about, all these different
Hmm.
characters, was this,
Yeah.
you and Wes actually, or was some of this, pre-Last Bastion, or how did
Uh,
that.
I'd say 98% of it is me. What Wes does, like, I've got ADHD and like how my brain works is like when I'm very surprised of how I'm expressing myself now. I'm actually articulate for once. But it's
Good day.
usually
Good day.
a shotgun blast of idea. It's not like,
Mhm.
a stream of idea, but it's like, oh, there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this.
Mhm.
And Wes uh gets all my references. He understands like the whole history of influences, and he's able to sit there with like a pen and paper and just be like, yeah, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, uh-huh, oh, okay, yes, noted, yes, yes. And then he's able to organize it, and then we just sit there and workshop and like, okay, I have this character in my head and this idea in the history, and like I know how he fits in the story in my head, and then Wes will help me kind of massage and like sharpen things up and put things in order, and so it actually makes sense to normal people.
Right. Yeah, and it's kinda giving it glue. Everything's
Yes,
kinda
yeah,
out there,
yeah.
and,
There, there are characters that I've made, and Wes has had an idea for um, this character called Banshee, and Banshee, it was two characters in my head. So it was Banshee, and then the pilot for Viper One, and Viper One is this giant viper mech power guardian thing. So it's like an actual snake, and so
okay.
it's interconnected, kind of like a train. But it's the size of like any one of the Evangelion, characters or Gundam characters. It's huge,
Yeah.
and so the Viper One uh, ship is kind of like a pirate ship and kind of like a supply caravan for villages and settlements that have been cut off from the rest of the world because there's just rampant kaiju and craziness like all over the place, keeping people from getting food and medical supplies and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
so the
Mhm.
Banshee character was actually this kind of like magic user, but she was actually the heavy metal wizard's girlfriend. But also, her father was the lead scientist and technical engineer for the majority of the technology that exists in the world at this point in time. So she's incredibly smart, incredibly savvy, and like understands how everything works. And like the Viper One ship, much like the Dread Pirate Roberts, it was a title,
Okay.
and she ends up getting to pilot and captain the Viper One, and with this ragtag crew of like 12 specialists that have like their own like commando and like demolition and all that kind of stuff. And so Wes kind of combined those two elements to make it a more well-rounded, more interesting, complex character than just having the two elements apart.
Mhm.
And so that's like where a lot of the partnership is, and it's like making things fit correctly, and then hearing me out and being like a sounding board for all these different ideas that we have.
And this world building that you guys
Mhm,
are working with, it
mhm.
really lends itself well to comics.
Oh yes, yes, and like that's like a big thing with us. It's like we've got so much content and so much history and story, and like it's massive, and like we just need to get it done. Like we've got an artist. Like it took me a long time to find the correct artist, and like every time that we found one that we thought was going to be the one, something happened. So like one of our first guys that we approached, he got married, his mom died, and then had a kid, like all in the same year.
Oh, wow.
And it was tragic that his mother passed away, but it was also like a life-changing year for him, and he just couldn't take on like the next project.
Right.
uh we had another guy that was interested, and then he got signed for one of the larger licensed, yeah,
Right.
so he's like, I really want to do it. It's so nice. It sounds really great, but I unfortunately I just signed this dream contract, and I hope you guys understand. I have to go with this. I'm like, totally, dude, make it happen. I hope
Right.
you are very successful. And then we found this other artist, Kevin. I Let me see if I can look up his last name. I always forget it. I'm such a bad person. Kevin Anthony Catalan. And this guy has made some very awesome comics. And he's got such a great, interesting style. And the textures of everything that he's done is just so raw and chaotic. And yet, his line work that he brings to the pages, like, makes everything it's awesome. It's perfect for Ragnar. And
Mhm.
we finally started working with him, and he has been nothing but exactly what we've wanted from the beginning, and I'm really thrilled about it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the comics, you've got a
Mhm.
few issues out already.
So we've got issue 0, which is out right now. We have about 15 scripts written.
Hmm.
So there's 15 issues like done. We just need to hand them over to Kevin, and he's already working on one of the shorts that we have to kind of like test them out. It's for another character called Dreaded Fred, and Dreaded Fred is this intergalactic space barbarian who is known as the Dream Berserker. But I can get that into that a little bit later if you want.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
um,
yeah, right now you can get that
yeah.
issue 0, and this is the
Mhm.
time to get
Yeah,
into.
get get issue 0 now. It's like the introductory of like what's happening in the world when Ragnar is born. So like the chaos is kind of all stirring, and we've got this idea where, as we're working on issue 1 and release, I mean, sorry, the first arc, we're going to be releasing these filler issues, well, not filler, but like introductory issues of these characters and happenings of like what was going on from these characters perspective as Ragnar was being born. So you have these two characters over here and over there, over here, and so we're going to do, I think, 8 or 10 small issues about like 8 to 12 pages long, and then we're going to combine them in like a compendium at like the end of the first story arc, so it like gives the whole like worldview of like all these people like looking in like what was happening the day that Ragnar was born.
Gotcha. Very
Yeah,
cool. And so,
yeah.
yeah, you got the perspective on
Hmm.
storytelling and all. And so, when
Hmm.
you have the Ragnar, I guess, if you're able to
Hmm.
tell them this, is Ragnar kind of communicating with the reader through thought bubbles or actual speech?
So like the canon itself allows him to talk. So he eventually, like as soon as the cannon gets attached to his arm, he begins to be able to communicate himself. And so a little like mechanical thing with Ragnar. Ragnar is what's known as a terror turtle. So
Okay.
terror turtles in this world are these kind of like mythical kaiju that only pop up every so often. And what the really crazy thing about these guys are, they reach to this like certain point in their life where like puberty, the end of puberty, that where like uh if they are closer to volcanoes, they'll have more armor. They'll be able to absorb or live within that harsher territory. If they're in a forest, they'll have like more giant claws so they can run through the rough terrain. If they're next to water, their arms will be more flipper like, and they adapt to wherever that they exist. And Ragnar gets the cannon right before he reaches that point. And it
Okay.
is later found out that he is like adapting to pure entropy, pure like chaos energy. Like he is like a lightning turtle, essentially. And so the cannon itself feeds off of that, and it allows him to grow larger. The more he eats, the larger he gets. The
Hmm.
more energy that he absorbs, the features of him change. And
Hmm.
so as he gets larger, he gets spikier. He gets a little bit more angry looking. Even though he's a sweetheart and he protects his friends and only wants to eat, but he'll do everything that he can to protect.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
as he gets weaker, as he gets hungrier, he begins to shrink and get smaller and smaller and smaller,
Oh.
and to the point where you can almost hold him in your hand.
Huh.
And so he gets cuter and cuter and cuter and smaller, and like almost like a little tiny turtle that
Yeah.
resembles like a tortoise. And but he'll still have the cannon on his arm.
He'll be as small as my little turtle. I've got Zippy. It's about that big.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
he's 10 years old and he's that big.
Yeah,
We'll get
yeah.
into nuts and bolts here in a minute of the design because I'm
Hmm.
really fascinated by that. We got
Hmm.
some activity here in the chat.
Yeah.
Bobby Reynolds is saying, "Hey." So, hi Bobby. I don't know
What's
if
up,
that's
Bobby?
yeah, I don't know if that's one someone you know, but hey, glad you're here.
Yeah.
Then we got Wesley Allard.
Oh yeah, Wes. It's my boy. It's my
That's your boy
buddy.
Wes. Okay, good. So Wes is giving you the
Hmm.
rock on,
It,
right?
it,
Yeah,
it's all metal. All
yeah.
metal all the time.
You must have the kind of background of the I don't know, Metallica or
Hmm.
Ozzy or any of that kind of.
Yeah. Ronnie James Dio. That is
Dio,
my
yeah.
that's my boy. Holy Diver.
Hmm.
Rainbow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Man on a silver mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Dio and I love
Hmm.
oh well, here we go.
What's
Seismic
up,
Boy.
Chris?
Yeah, we got
Chris and
Chris.
Alex. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. And they've got some cool stuff going on with their
Yeah, they
stuff
do.
too. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of, yeah, the design of
Hmm.
getting into it, making it a reality,
Hmm.
a physical
Yeah.
reality. And maybe you could show me or kind of explain how that process goes.
Yeah, sure. So all if you want to screen share one of these
Okay.
guys, I don't have
Yeah.
Ragnar's pulled up, but this is going to be our next character that we're going
Oh,
to be
cool.
producing in vinyl, and this is Terra Kyofu, and Terra Kyofu is actually in issue 0.
Oh, right there he is.
He,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you pick up issue 0, you know what's going to happen with him.
All right.
So he is one of the more chaotic kaiju, kind of like pure, like on the more side of evil, chaotic, destructive. Um, and I did a lot of research of uh, predatorial bones. So like a lot of shark jaws, like if you can see within like the top ridges of his shoulders and everything. I modeled that after like the open mouth of the jawline of a shark. And like I tried to make this thing every single step of the way more predatory and more evil looking and just
Oh,
sharp
wow.
and yeah.
Yeah. Look at that
Hmm.
face in the
Hmm.
back there.
Yeah.
So,
So when we start off with a design for a toy, it usually involves sketching first, just on paper, just iterating and like trying to get the ideas out.
uh-huh.
And then once I kind of have the idea of my head of where I want to go, I open up ZBrush, which is this program right here, and it's my favorite 3D sculpting program. And then I just start blocking things out. We usually just start with something like, a ball. Like if you ever sculpted with Play-Doh or anything,
Yeah.
we, put basic features and start blocking out shapes and ridge lines and, starting with eyes and all that. And then just eventually continue on until it looks like what we have right now in front of us.
Yeah.
Um,
Wes
so
is saying the Earth Terror.
yeah,
Yeah.
So Kyoufu is Japanese for terror, and Terra is the main name for Earth. So the
Okay.
Earth Terror.
I also think Terrapin. That kind
Mhm.
of jumps out to me too. So it's a real play
Mhm.
on words there.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of like tongue-in-cheek stuff throughout the whole story, and like all the other characters that are like that. There's a lot of
Mhm.
puns and not,
Yeah.
not too much to make it too silly, but yeah, there's a lot
Right.
of fun in there.
Subtle. Yeah.
Yes.
And
So
yeah.
once we finalize the design and make sure, everything's able to move correctly, the arms, the feet, and make sure that the proportions are correct, I'll eventually engineer it and 3D print it. And if we go back to my camera, this is actually what it looks like when it's 3D
Yeah.
printed.
I get this.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is off of a low resolution FDM printer. So it's basically the equivalent of how we kind of explain it. It's like a hot glue gun printer. So it melts PLA plastic and then layers it with the G code and then builds it up from there. And so
Mm.
if you look closely, you can kind of like see some of the ridges, like the
Mhm.
horizontal lines. But this is a cheap way to iterate. I mean, the prints are relatively cheap for this plastic. The printers are the expensive part. But once we have like, okay, this physical representation of the sculpt, we can check and see, oh, well, the digital sculpt, it looked good digitally, but maybe this groove line, now that we have it in hand, needs to be shaped a little bit more, or those features that we put in there aren't need to be exaggerated a little bit more. So we'll make notes and just marks on this, and then go back to the digital, and then once we feel like it's good again, we'll 3D print it, and then make sure that uh the whole structure of the figure feels good, like having this in your hand. Like,
Mhm.
it might look great on screen, but as soon as you got this in your hand, like, oh man, I want 10 of these.
Yeah,
Just sitting on my shelf like this, just like lined up with all my other figures in every
that's
single color.
that brings to mind my friend Everett Gronin here in the
Mm,
chat. Hey, Everett, Godzilla
mm.
Fan Freaks on YouTube.
Hey.
Work. Glad to join in. I think last show I had
Mhm.
Seismic. I think I got him sold on a Gyrus, so I may be selling Everett on a Ragnar too. So
Ragnar. Awesome.
you need Ragnar needs a guitar riff, right? Yeah,
Oh yeah. So
and a
we've
scream.
we've had a couple friends of mine who have been in heavy metal bands, and James Luna from Holy Grail is a childhood friend of mine, and he's been drafting up the theme song for Ragnar. And so he can hit like a high C like nobody's business. And so it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
fast, it's going to be chaotic, and it's going to be really awesome once it
Very
finally
cool.
gets done.
Nice. Yeah, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear that. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, like Everett said, print it out, get it in your
Hmm.
hands, and then
Hmm.
figure
Yeah.
out what works, what doesn't
Hmm.
work. And
Yeah.
so when you get her printed like that, is
Hmm.
it what's the next step in the process?
So, depending on how we want to go about it, it's usually about finding the proper factory of producing the toy, and depending on how we want it produced, either if it's an unpainted figure or a painted figure, we would vet and select the factory either from, you know, uh, somewhere in China or Southeast Asia, Taiwan,
Mhm,
Malaysia, and we would try and get samples from them of previous work, or previous artists who have worked with them before, and just make sure that they're able to do and produce something to our standards. And then once we kind of have that factory selected, we get quotes and establish a price, and then send the 3D files over to them, and we get a prototype made over at the factory, and then they create the molds, depending on if it's a soft vinyl character, which is Ragnar, he's soft vinyl, or
mhm,
Sofubi.
mhm.
um, and then we get the vinyl pulled, get some tests, and then evaluate if the tests came out good, and go into production.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And I was going to share here Chrome tab and bring
Mhm.
up the shop here and see so many
Oh
variants.
yeah.
It's so beautiful to
Hmm.
see. And
Hmm.
actually, what's really great is you showed me the scale,
Hmm.
to see how big it is
Oh
with
yeah.
and because this is not a little guy. This is
Mm-mm.
this is big.
That's the number one thing that everybody says when they go to conventions or when they actually order it and they get it in hand. They go, "Oh my god, it's huge. I thought this thing was going to be like, the small Coke can, but it is the size of my head. It's huge. It's a
Exactly.
big beefy boy."
And looking at it, I'm just like, man, so many cool variants. You've even got the
Mm.
variants that don't have the cannon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's the skeleton Ragnar version. So a lot of people like the canon and like the character with the canon, but there are, the purists, the guys who only want the kaiju with no alterations, and they want two giant hands that they can swipe things with. So I
Mhm.
decided to make one specifically like that, and every single Ragnar actually comes with an additional hand that you can swap it out with.
Oh, that's what I was gonna
Yeah,
ask because
yeah.
I saw this orange one has the
Mhm,
cannon sitting there,
mhm.
so
Yeah,
just pop it
eh,
off, right?
yeah, unless it's stated, like the skeleton one didn't come with a cannon, but, you can swap them out. If it's a blank, you can just take a hair dryer and soften up the vinyl, and then
Mhm.
be able to pop off the cannon, and then while that vinyl is still warm, you can take the alternate hand and put it on relatively easily.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's definitely, something, for everyone
Yeah.
to show to check
Mhm,
out the shop
mhm.
there. I've
Yeah.
got, yeah, proud owner of a skeleton Ragnar. So
Yes,
this
yes.
is one. I
Yeah,
assume it's Chris or Alex, one of the two, but I imagine
yeah.
uh, but the skeleton one kind of reminds me. It's like when you see like the what is it called in Mexico? The celebration of the dead.
Yeah,
They have
Dia
those
de los Muertos.
skeletons.
Yeah, yeah. The Day of
Yeah,
the Dead, yeah.
it really
Um,
reminds me of that. Mhm.
yeah. I really like that stuff. And it was a fun version to do. Um, and there's going to be different versions. I'll probably do like uh, a similar black outline, but with some browns and yellows to make it more bone. And I'll probably end up doing like a red version, like a blood bone version. But the possibilities are endless. It's just about like actually sitting down and doing it,
Right.
which is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because like all these, I've hand painted them myself. So every single thing that's painted, it's done by me. So
Okay.
I usually, like, for my personal figures like Ragnar, I get them as blanks because I think as a creator, especially with my own figure, that each one of these should have my hands on it and should be me producing it. And
Mm.
I feel like it's just so much more special, especially buying from other designers and other creators, that like that guy, that girl, that person painted this, and I get to see the mistakes. I get to see, oh, you didn't put eyes on this, I want the one with no eyes, like give me that one.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
down to our last couple of minutes here. We
Mhm.
actually
Yeah,
have
yeah,
7
yeah.
minutes left, and I want to make sure we
Sure,
talk
sure.
real quick about what's next for Last Bastion, and then give yourself another plug at the end.
Yeah.
What's
So
next?
we've got a bunch of characters on the way. There's a bunch of kaijus that we've got in the works. I've got about 9 toys getting quoted out at factories right now, or are in production, I should say. So we're producing toys for other artists. We're iterating and concepting for other customers, and it's not just artists, it's people who want to make toys, who have always had the dream of making toys, and that's what we do.
Mhm.
We're we help bring other people's creative ideas to life, whether it be comics, toys, animations, like anything that you have like an idea that you want to do. That is what we're here for. That's what we're creating. That's what we're servicing and like producing. Like
That's
if you need help making a giant 20-foot tall monument for a movie opening, like I know
yeah.
how to do that. I know how to get that done. Or if you want like an exact replica of like a sculpt, or like a bronze figure that your parents had but was lost and all you have is pictures, I
Mhm.
can, replicate that for you.
And get it as a
Yeah,
physical
as
thing.
a physical thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about that. Yeah, it's just I can look at a
Hmm.
2D on my computer all day long
Hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, until I actually have it in my hands, it's
Yeah.
real to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is so cool. So yeah, so with Last Bastion, you got a lot of cool things coming
Hmm.
up. This is like a
Yeah.
time to get into those comics.
Yeah, especially so Ragnar's we're producing a lot of Ragnar comics. Like I said, we've got a lot of issues already written. Another one that you should check out is Luchador. Luchador is Wes's property that he's been producing for a while, and you have to check it out.
Mhm.
I've been reading the scripts over the last couple years, and he's finally got like one of his um, issues produced in its fullest, and I think it's almost 60 plus pages. But this
Okay.
thing is just a monster of a comic book. Like the art is amazing. Like it's very well done.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
there's a
sure.
lot of great action scenes. There's great dialogue. There's a lot of good story in there, and he's got more story than I do for Ragnar. It's huge. So definitely go check that out. If you like Luchador, if you like crime, thrillers and all that kind of stuff, like it's definitely one to get into.
Okay, cool. So,
Hmm.
Luchador may not be necessarily what we would consider a kaiju, right? But
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, but still along the lines of monster, I would say.
Yeah, there's superhero-esque characters in there with crazy abilities. As they put the mask on, they become impenetrable and super strong. It's a lot of fun and really well done.
All right, excellent. So check out
Yeah.
Luchador,
Hmm.
Ragnar, everything you've got going there.
Hmm.
You got any shows maybe you're going to be at that people could check out?
If we look at the calendar on lastbastionstudios.com, that has all of our shows that we are currently scheduled for. So Sactoy Con was probably going to be in March 27th, but we're not quite sure that that is actually happening. So Robo Toyfest in May 15th, that is my favorite local toy show. If you are there for robots, GI Joes, and monsters, if you're in the Pasadena area, that is the one to go to. You have guys with their collections that they've kept safe for so many years, and finally they're trying to liquidate some of their pieces, and you'll find some awesome gems there. And
Yeah.
that's in Pasadena,
Okay.
California.
But
Yeah.
yeah, check out the site with the calendar for all your
Hmm.
shows
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, yeah.
And then you've
Yeah.
got something today that
Oh yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. We just launched a giveaway for one of the Ragnar figures. So it's a green blank Ragnar figure. It's free to enter. All you got to do is go to our contest link right there
Yep.
through Gleam, and there's a couple little things that you got to do. Put your email down, first and last name, and then go visit our other social platforms and that link that we got in there for the Starbraver soft vinyl Kickstarter. And that's another thing that you got to check out. Starbraver by Waylon Kwan. He's Spumoni Toys. He's got a Kickstarter going on right now, and I can't wait to see it be successful.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm going to put
Hmm.
that link in the chat as
Hmm.
well so
Yeah.
that people can, yeah, check that out. Because, hey, what's there to lose? You're going to, get into the running for a Ragnar,
Hmm.
your own.
Dude, yeah, free Ragnar, man. Check
Yeah,
it out.
can't.
And it's like, we just passed 2,000 people in November after Designer Con, and it's a contest that I've been meaning to set up and promote. I've just been very busy, but
Yeah.
I finally just want to be like, hey, thanks guys, thanks for all the follows, appreciate all the support. Here's an opportunity to get one if you haven't been able to.
All right, awesome. So check that out. Check out Last Bastion Studios on their website. Again, that'd
Mhm.
be lastbastionstudio.com.
Yeah.
Twitter, Facebook, all of the, and Instagram. I don't know, remember all
Mhm.
the different ones you've got?
Yeah, they're all in there. So at Ragnar Squad for Instagram and Twitter, Last Bastion STU for Twitter, and Last Bastion Studios for Instagram. And you can find the Luchador comic Instagram and Twitter on there as well. And we'll have plenty of other properties to plug as well,
All right.
very
And
very
maybe
soon.
one more plug to get they're interested in getting their own Ragnar. Obviously they
Hmm.
can go to Last Bastion
Hmm.
Studios, but is there other places they can find it?
Yeah, so if you go to Tenacious Toys, they've got a couple Ragnar figures. Holy Mountain Printing has a couple figures still. Seismic Toys, they've got a couple figures as well. And if you just type in a Ragnar vinyl figure on Google, you'll find a couple other guys that are trying to resell them. And if you get the painted ones now, you'll get them at a good price because they are actually increasing in value, which is actually pretty cool.
Okay. Cool. Nice. Well, there's a lot of
Mhm,
things cool happening with Last
mhm,
Bastion Studios.
mhm.
Chris, I'm so glad I had you on here.
Yeah. Thank you
Really,
very much, Nick. I
and I
appreciate it.
really, yeah, and I really appreciate your time. You've been very
Mhm,
generous with it, and we're gonna have
mhm.
to have you on for an update later on
Yeah, let's do it.
as things are happening. So
Mhm.
thank you, and thank you all for joining us on this Monster Report live. And check out the contest. Get signed up for a free Ragnar, and if nothing else, follow them and keep up with what's going on with Last Bastion Studios. So we will catch you on another episode of the Monster Report. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much.